Welcome back to another video. So today we're not going to do a free code camp video. We're just going to talk about code and actually more specifically getting your first sort of front end or web dev job, which is what I did myself, coming from a completely different career in travel, and then have now been working as a front end developer for, it will be coming up to 2 years this year. So very excited to share these 2 tips with you. And if you wait to the end, or you can skip ahead, I've got a small announcement to make regarding some sort of help that I'd like to give back to the community, because I certainly have received a lot of help, both in person and online as well, through other channels and videos, but also through meetups and that kind of thing. And I think it's been really valuable, and certainly I'm not sure if I'd be where I am today without a lot of the advice that I've received online. So I think, there's been a few comments from a lot of my viewers, which is nice, about how to get their first job, how to structure their portfolio and LinkedIn and GitHub and etc. And yeah, I've been helping out some people here and there, but I'd like to kind of formalize that process and basically, as I'll explain more later on, I've got a new website set up where you'll be able to book in a call with me, just a 30-minute call, and we can discuss your application and then basically tailor it more to your specific needs. Because obviously at the moment I'm kind of, I guess, just replying generically and don't understand, let's say, maybe your specific situation. But I think I'd be able to help a little bit with some more tips and specialisms for you to get that first job. So without further ado, I thought I would go through just the 2 tips that I've got to begin with. And the first one would be fixing up your GitHub. So I think a lot of people, they kind of know this, and whether you do or don't, is up to you. But that was something I did from quite early on. And if I just go down here, you can see 2020 is when I opened my account. And I opened it on the 29th of July, and I think I'd been starting to code around June or July that year, 2020. So towards the end of July, I opened my account, and you can see here I don't actually have many commits at all until sort of October, November time. And that's fine. I don't know what these projects will be. It'll probably just be like just doing, I think this was actually like a Git test when I was starting to learn Git, a couple of months in, learning HTML and CSS. But definitely get that set up. And I would say any code or project that you're working on locally on your laptop or PC, you should definitely hook it up to a repository. And you can see here I've currently got 70. Not all of these are public, quite a lot are actually private, whether it's my own project or whatnot, but it's good to still have this contributions, because then let's say if I go to 2022, I know it's quite active, you can see then that, I'm coding quite a lot, not every day, and there's periods where I'm off, but it's quite consistent. And certainly 2021 as well, you can see it was really consistent. This September area was where I actually got my first tech job. So I kind of took some time off to ramp up there rather than, learning to code here. But anyway, I'll come back to the contributions in a little bit. So as I said, I would definitely recommend to commit your code to GitHub. You can give it a good repo name. And yeah, you can also add some information about it. So that appears here. And these are pinned repositories. So you can kind of customize and drag these around as well, of which ones you want to display for, I don't know, it could be recruiters, but probably more technical professionals or the hiring, sort of whoever's on the tech team that are hiring. We'll certainly have a look at your GitHub. So that obviously should be on your CV, which I think it probably doesn't need to be mentioned. So yeah, I would recommend setting this up. You can see here I've got a README. So if you create a new repository using your username, which for example mine is Chris Cooper 0, the README actually appears on this page here. So at the moment I've only got my LinkedIn and just my name. But yeah, you can come up with quite creative ways to use this. And obviously it's a markdown file, MD. So yeah, you can get quite creative. You can style it. For me, I've just centered everything, and well, there's not much there, but it used to have my email address as well and some other information. But yeah, that's a good tip to have this. And then, as I said, the pinned comments. pinned repositories, because a good piece of advice I actually got from a recruiter was that on your CV and then perhaps your GitHub as well, you should really have like kind of one or a couple of projects that you're really proud of, and you can put out there. And if it makes it easily accessible so that I don't have to click to repositories and then maybe scroll through a whole list. If you provide the link, let's say on your CV, or even just here, you'll be able to see quite quickly what it is, what the language is as well. So you can see you've got JavaScript and then a lot of TypeScript. And then if I dive into one, for example, so this API. So whilst I'm a sort of mostly front-end developer, I have been learning some Node and Express and more back-end technologies. And what you can see here now is that the README is actually quite nicely laid out. So it's not the usual, what I'm using here is obviously Next and then Node. It's not the create Next app, like default README, or create React app, sorry, whatever you're using. So let's say maybe a framework. You can put your, you can, with the MD Markdown, you can style it quite nicely. So I've got links to the tech stack that I'm using, and then I've also got here a project structure. And feel free to go ahead and like clone this or copy it. This is Chris Cooper 0/API on GitHub. And I use this now for most of my projects because it's a nice way not only to keep an eye on what sort of where things are in the code as it builds out. And there's probably automated ways to do this, but yeah, it was nice to do when I had a client and a server in the same repository. And then let's say if I want to go to a util function, you can go to utils. And then if I want to, let's say, create new DB user, we can go over here, and that is all the code that I'm sort of injecting here into SQL to create a new user in the database. So yeah, it's quite simple, and it just makes it look a bit nicer, because I'm sure there's been a lot of times where a recruiter or someone technical will go into here, and let's see if crypto, this is just using an API data. I don't know if this will have a nice README or not. It was a bit older. But actually, yeah, so this has a bit of information at the top, and you can see here it's actually hosted, and I've got the Netlify badge as well. So I think Vercel or whoever you might be hosting with would be able to provide a badge to the deployment. You can see it's success. So obviously if it's failed, it will be in red. But you can see here there's just a short strapline about what it is, and then some features that I've included here. So filterable search, I'm using SCSS modules, and it's written in TypeScript. So, and you can see that over here as well. But here's what I mean about the default. If you've ever created a React app, you'll know this is what it comes as default. And you kind of want to just have a nicer README for all of the projects that you're sort of posting or proud of, just to, sort of provide a bit more information about what it is, because I'm pretty sure unless it's hosted or they're specifically looking at a code test someone's given you, no one's really going to clone the repo and run it locally. Just to have a look at your code, sort of if it's sort of front-end related, certainly. So as I said, yeah, just try and keep committing. What helped with this was I was doing a lot of like mini problems and algorithms, I guess. And you can see here, if I go to the algorithms folder, there are a bunch of algorithms. These are all JavaScript, mostly from a couple of courses, or sort of YouTube tutorials of different problems, but also Code Wars, which is quite good as well. And you can see I sort of was doing one a day for quite a long time, and then I was maybe refactoring them to TypeScript or adding tests. I don't know if these have tests on them. No, these ones don't, but there are also some JavaScript ones as well when I was doing that. So I think that's why in 2021 there was a lot of green like every day, because it's might just maybe 1 or 2 contributions, but I was always coding something basically for a long period of time. So yeah, so keep committing. And the other thing as well is that often if you're, let's say, working now for a company, you won't be using your personal GitHub. So for example, my first job here, I've got this linked, and you can see it's got a nice little overview of the commits, sort of, percentage code reviews and pull requests. Obviously all the actual contributions are private, but you can see that basically when I joined, I guess it was the 19th of August 2021 was when I got my first tech job. You can see I was kind of consistently committing to the code base, and then up until the end of October last year was when I left that company for another one. But you can see it's kind of consistent with a working developer. And yeah, it's quite nice that this is kept here kind of as a relic as well. And I can sort of look back on not what I worked on, but, it's just, I guess, a recollection of what it all was. So yeah, that's kind of GitHub sort of 101, I guess, in terms of how you might want to structure it. But I think the big key takeaways would be keep committing early on and get that started. You don't want kind of large gaps, maybe a couple of weeks, or if you're off ill, or around Christmas, obviously it dips off. But yeah, I would say try and keep committing as much as you can. And obviously they have to be sort of real things. You don't want to commit like one line change or something. Sometimes you might be able to game the system, but yeah, they can always check that. So yeah, keep committing. Have a nice sort of profile here, so with the README and then your pinned projects. And yeah, I think that would go quite well. And I certainly know actually a few recruiters follow me, which is interesting. I didn't think they would, but some other people as well. And they've always commented on how nicely it is laid out as well, perhaps compared to someone else's who wouldn't have all this, and it'd be very sparse. So you might not be able to see exactly what they're working on, and I guess what skill level they're at. So the other one, sort of the tip, other than GitHub, was then LinkedIn. This is a super powerful tool. I think most of my jobs have been applied through LinkedIn before travel and obviously now. And yeah, there's a lot of information that not only companies can get about you, but also like hiring managers and other people reaching out as well. So I definitely recommend having this up to date. And you can see here, I've just got quite a generic, I guess, background and a photo, but I definitely recommend if you can take professional headshots. So thankfully this was done through my previous work. And then before that, I had some nice headshots as well. But having a nice photo that's clear, they can see you, that always helps. And I link my LinkedIn on my CV, so again, anyone can go and check that out and actually put a face to a name as well, which is often quite nice to do. So scrolling down, I haven't got too much information. I've just got obviously rough area where I live. I don't have my mobile or email on here. And generally, if anyone wants to reach out, they can send a message through the service, through LinkedIn. So you don't have to worry too much about all of this. There is, I think, actually like sometimes a checkbox of what you can do to get your profile looking better, which LinkedIn provide, and I think I've done all of that, so it's not appearing now. But yeah, one of the things would be have an about section. So before this, I actually had a lot more information about what I was learning, tech-wise, why I want to sort of move into web development, and yeah, you can have a lot of information there to sort of help out that process and explain a bit more about yourself. But for now, I've just got product and tech because that's kind of what I like to do. So in terms of activity, I actually don't use LinkedIn too much, not to contradict what we're saying here, but yeah, I only really use it if I'm searching for a job. So yeah, I don't sort of like other people's posts or anything like that, or comment too much. Try to keep it to a minimum, but yeah, it's good to perhaps have some activity, especially when you're job searching, and start maybe following the companies that you like the look of or that you're applying to. That always helps as well, and it might just go that little bit extra if a recruiter sort of sees that you're following maybe their tech blog or sort of commenting on some of their posts and what they're up to. So next you can then obviously add your experience. And one thing I do for each of these is actually add a link to the company itself, because for example, you often won't know if it's sort of a smaller company or obviously even nationwide. So for example, Waitrose and Partners are big here in the UK, but not necessarily elsewhere around the world. Sort of been a e-commerce and retail chain. So yeah, I always add sort of their link, and sometimes it comes through with assets as well, if it's available, not always, as you can see here. And sometimes you'll see a big blurb of the company and all of that. I don't think you need that. I think just the title that you had, the company itself, full-time, or was it like part-time or contract, and then just the dates that you worked there, just to match up with your CV, is worthwhile having. And then these skills here are ones that I've attributed to the company itself here. So for example, I was learning and using React and Next.js with styled components, TypeScript and HTML. And that's kind of what I use now as well. plus a bunch of others. But these were the main skills that I added and just linked to this job here, because effectively when recruiters will look up on their sort of recruiter site of LinkedIn, they'll search for, let's say a junior or a full stack developer who's currently in employment using this data and knows React. And then, your profile would go to the top of their page if that's the case. And again, similarly here, this was my tech job prior, and just for sort of full transparency, whilst it said head of technology, it was completely non-technical. I think about as technical as I got in this role when I was there for, I guess, coming up to 7 years, was probably Excel and sort of macros with VBA. So it was very much more product and project management rather than technology. But yeah, so that's why I relied heavily on here, this education and free code camp. So I've put free code camp as in my education, just so that my previous education, the highest level was a degree in geography, and graduated in 2014. So by the time it was 2020 and 21, that had been quite a while that I was working in travel. So I put free code camp here, and again, it just shows that I kind of have a computer software engineering certificate, and I've put this as an open source coding bootcamp, and it's self-paced as well. But yeah, it does help to have this. And here's the 3 certificates that I mentioned. Obviously, I was going through back in 2020, and I think this all helps basically. You can never have too much education, right? So you'll see here, I've also got the licenses and certificates, and I add these as certificates here. I think these are clickable, or that's the Free Code Camp company, but there is an issue date as well when I've added this. So again, it's just good to have. Then the other thing, and this is probably one of the most important things, are skills. So here you can see that I've got a list of skills, and if I show all 16, it's going to be a lot of front-end technologies, and as you might know, you can endorse people, so colleagues and whatnot, or friends or people that you work with can endorse you for, let's say, JavaScript or React or whatnot. And here you can see is where I've linked it to the company itself. And some of these you'll see I've passed the LinkedIn skills assessment. So these are really good to do, and I definitely recommend it. I believe I've passed React as well, so I'm not sure why it isn't displaying here. But you can see for CSS as well. It actually looks like you get a little report as well on how well you did, but I'm not going to click on that because I can't remember. But obviously I have passed it. Well, let's just have a look for the JavaScript one. So there you go. You can see I earned a badge, and I was in the top 5% of the 2.3 million people who took the course. So yeah, I would definitely recommend doing these skills assessments, and it kind of also qualifies you as a candidate that does know JavaScript and does know React and CSS, for example. So really that's all you're trying to do, is just to convey whoever's looking at your profile, whether it's your CV, your LinkedIn or your GitHub, that you do know what you're talking about, and you do know, in this case, I guess, how to code and work at a company as well. So anyway, here's all the skills, and I believe you can order these because now I've put my sort of travel technology ones at the bottom, and then GIS was from actually my degree in sort of geographical information systems. But yeah, there's quite a lot that you can add, and you can just see here, if I go sort of slowly, you can see all of the ones that I've currently added, and then got endorsements for each of them as well, which is nice. So just going back to the profile, we can see next we've got courses. So these are again all the, I guess, other courses other than Free Code Camp, which I'm calling a sort of education in terms of a boot camp that I went through. So some Code Academy, there was Scrimba, and then there was one that was associated with my previous work. But yeah, I definitely recommend adding these, and it's not going to do any harm, and it kind of bulks out your profile as well if it's quite sparse with information. So that's good to have. And then here, interests. So I definitely recommend, as I said earlier, just following some companies. Some of these might be more travel related, but you can see I follow 114 companies. A lot of these now will be tech, and not only does that sort of keep you abreast of a lot of information on the homepage from their posts, but yeah, it's quite good to go through and obviously see what jobs they might have. And as I said, if you're following the company, you can kind of might have some information about what they're working on or what they're looking at or how they're doing as a company. And then I guess more specifically, groups are quite good to join. There's a lot of TypeScript and front end, UI, UX, for example. And yeah, I recommend joining as many as you can, really. You can see some of these have huge numbers, and like, almost 500,000 in the front end development group. And yeah, it's quite good to join and just keep it on top of sort of interesting topics that you might be looking to work in, specific languages, sorry, or sort of frameworks and that kind of thing. So yeah, I think that's kind of it for the 2 tips in terms of LinkedIn and then GitHub before, how you can sort of optimize these to best put yourself in a position to get that first job. And then, as I alluded to and sort of mentioned actually earlier, I have now opened up some I guess free sort of calls or consulting. If you'd like to book in for March onwards, please feel free to go to the link that will be in the description box below. And you can see here I'm primarily focused on the front end, but I'd love to help anyone out and give more specific advice if you have any questions related to your GitHub or LinkedIn or even portfolio as well, which I haven't shown you today. But yeah, there's a lot of information that I believe I can share and sort of help you get you on that journey and get set up, because I certainly don't regret leaving my travel job for now pursuing a career in tech. So yeah, if you go to this link, it's a simple cal.com calendar. You can select the date and time, and this is when I will be available. And obviously we get confirmation via email. But all you need to do is select that, just put your name, email address and phone number so I can give you a call. And if there's any additional notes as well, please feel free to add those in. And I look forward to chatting with you at that point as well, and sort of helping you get your first web dev job. So yeah, that's all for today's video. So I just wanted to sort of announce that and provide the 2 tips as well, which was a bit more generic. But I look forward to seeing you in the next few videos. And again, thank you for watching.